All right, folks, episode 5 of GTMN. It is November 13, 2025, and we are going to start with a bang. Austin, you messaged me yesterday or this morning with three pretty interesting announcements. So let's get into it. The first one was SuperMe, which is a fellow Greylock-backed company, and I've seen them. I've seen Casey sort of talk about it, but I haven't actually played with it. Seems like you have. What's happening with SuperMe? What do you think is the big news there?
Yeah. True to our promise about no shills, I have known Casey for a long time. I did not bring up this topic just because I like Casey, but he is actually kind of like a marketing and growth legend. So if you're listening to this and you haven't read anything by Casey, I think your brain would get a lot bigger and be better if you read some of his stuff. But so he's been a long time marketing operator and a product operator, and he created a company a while back that's called SuperMe. And I think the premise of it is that, and over the last 2 years, as LLMs have grown, people have tried to capture the context of what's in their head and offer that as a service. And, certainly there's like some dystopian parts of this. Like, I think there's a Black Mirror about loading a robot with like all of your conscious memories. Is that you? Certainly reminds me of Westworld, right? You can capture the essence of somebody through all their core memories and then load that into AI. But that's for another time. SuperMe, though, is a custom model that allows you to import all of your kind of known public content that you are an expert in, supplement that with private data that is of your choosing, and then offer that as a query service to anybody who is researching topics or trying to solve problems or working on a product or area or just needs help. So again, at its core, it's just another.
So let me think through this. So could I take all of the podcasts that I've ever done, all of the blog posts from Paramark, all of our knowledge-based articles, right? Feed it into SuperMe and go like, hey, you may not be ready for, a sales conversation. I'm just like picking a use case. But if you just want to pick my brain about a problem that you're dealing with and around sort of incrementality, go to my SuperMe and it's just right there.
It's 100% it. So mine is obviously very focused on Martech and growth engineering. Casey's on product. But what's cool though is they have a lot of experts on the network. And so when you ask a question, you can ask a specific person, but you can also ask a generic question, and then all the experts kind of collide. So somebody could ask a question about incrementality, and they might hear from you and myself and Lenny and Sribachu and others who might have perspective on it. So you can go deep with a specific expert, which is great because, like you said, hey, I really want to help you. Ask SuperMe like 5 to 10 questions, and like tell me if these answers aren't clear, or let's go over those answers together in our next call so that we have a basis of which to talk about something. And I feel like this is actually the most useful case is like, hey, can we just prime our conversation? Because there's so many times where I'll have a conversation with somebody and I really just want to say, can you just send me your questions so that I can think about them in advance? And that way I come prepared with the answer. And so SuperMe is great because if it's high fidelity with the stuff that you have in your brain, then you know that the response is going to be pretty accurate and it will give them a good primer. And then you can come in to help supplement that. And so I loaded 10 years of consulting history.
Oh, wow.
So I have 10 years of Martech knowledge. I have my Maven course. I have my Reforge course. I put it all in there and the answers are phenomenal. And I think this is some of the magic of what Casey and his co-founder Anton have done is they've really worked on specializing the model to extract the meaningful parts of your knowledge base and to get rid of all the fluff and bullshit. So it's not just like, hey, I loaded 100 files into Claude. It's a custom model that they've built that is really accurate and good for expertise building. And then it also it listens to your social media. It listens to your Substack. It listens to things. So you don't have to keep uploading. Like whenever I write on Substack, it's getting loaded into my SuperMe.
Oh, cool. So it's just doing the knowledge collection and automation in an automated way. That's awesome. Okay, that's very cool. I'm going to go check that out. And I mean, they must have lots of monetization opportunities because I would love to put this on our, website and just be like, hey, just talk to Pranav. Or at least Pranav's AI.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be lots of monetization. The monetization in particular will be interesting because it's like, do you monetize the individuals? Do you give them a cut on parts of their knowledge? Do you gate specific profiles? Like, I think that's like a whole interesting thing. But it just reminds me a lot of of Cameo. Like,
Oh,
you could
yes.
pay people for their expertise. And what I really think is interesting about Casey's company, and the same with Reforge, is it's just bringing power to solopreneurs. And in the background of everything we're talking about is this idea that individuals now, content creators, and people who write, think, and speak are becoming more powerful in a world where like AI is getting rid of the automatable and easy shit of company building. And so this is maybe one of the first examples where like your brand, your reputation, your knowledge is power and the ability to build. And then it also just gets me thinking about like we're kind of going through this renaissance of brand building. I'm watching the Netflix documentary on Martha Stewart,
Oh,
and
nice. Yeah.
she was like legendary in building a whole entire company around herself. And I kind of feel like this is one example of what's happening with knowledge experts.
I think it's great. I think every founder, whether you're on the consumer side or the B2B side, could probably use SuperMe to kind of supercharge their, online presence. So that sounds really exciting. I'm gonna give it a shot. You've given me a nice kick in the butt to go try it out.
This was not
Okay,
a paid post, by the way. This was
I
just
know,
because
I
I thought it was
know.
cool.
Yeah.
And also there was like there were so many things happening on LinkedIn this week, and this was one of the
Yes.
biggest. It just was like resonating in my LinkedIn chamber.
Absolutely. Okay, so two big things in addition to this. One was Reforge Build, and the second is Hightouch agents. So lots of AI and agents. I don't know if you kind of have to deal with all the AI and agentic news these days. Like, there's no choice. Like, that's the world that we live in. Sometimes there's like an overload. But let's talk about Reforge Build. So I did not expect this from Reforge. I kind of knew that they were going through a little bit of a pivot, but what is Reforge Build? Like, is this lovable 2.0? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. Again, not a paid post, no shills here. We've
We
both
are both
known.
Reforge course creators,
Yeah,
so
we are both Reforge courses. This is maybe a little bit of a shill, but no, I mean, I think the news is really interesting because again, there are prototyping and build platforms emerging all the time, and there's this question in my head of how many can you have. The reason I brought it up, and what I think Brian has done a brilliant job of, is twofold. One, there's the ad, which I want to talk about at the end. They have an ad
yeah,
on LinkedIn, which was phenomenal. But let's actually talk about the strategy. What I love about it is they were very intentional in saying this is a prototyping platform, not a
right.
not an application builder. And I think this has been some of the question with Lovable and Replit is everybody's building prototypes, but how much of this is going to translate into functional production grade apps? And I think what Reforge has done is a genius move in saying, no, this is literally for product builders and marketers and others who want to build stuff on top of their existing application and then deploy it. It's ephemeral. So you pay for the product, but if the product
Yep.
changes, you can keep using it. The other thing that's
Okay,
really
that's
beneficial.
that's brilliant, Austin. Let me pause you there because I think that's a
Yeah.
huge point of differentiation compared to any of the other AI platforms. Nobody's saying it's for prototyping. Everyone's saying like launch now, go to production, like it'll do everything. And these guys have taken a very conscious approach of like, no, 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 this is for prototyping. I love it because that is a very valuable thing. Prototyping and getting, a quick sort of feedback loop and getting something in front of your customers, getting a reaction, and then passing it off to your engineering team to actually build it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. Uh, Other details, they literally have a from Figma or from PRD, which to me
Ah,
makes complete sense because the way that I've operated in startups is with a Figma file. So Figma directly to product, you can embed it right inside your product. The other thing that obviously works really well is the fact that Reforge today is known for their experts, kind of similar to what Casey is building with SuperMe. And so you now have this system that can help you build that has all the knowledge and power of Reforge behind it. And to me, this is more of a marketing and a product and company building exercise that I really accolade or applaud Brian for, which is creating a loop. So, and Brian is like the fucking king of loops. Sorry, my language.
all good.
He is the loop god.
That is true. That
And
is true.
and the loop here is students and product managers and growth folks are gonna start with Reforge. They're gonna take an educational class. They're gonna learn. Then they're gonna start building. They're gonna have an idea or a project that they're working on for work, and they're gonna naturally then turn to Reforge Build. Now, previously they had
Mm,
their AI Insights Chrome extension that kind of let you layer in Reforge Insights on top of your PRD.
right.
That's just now a native part of the process. So you're going to Reforge to learn, and then you're starting to build something for your job to do better, because that's why you take classes and learn. And then when you're like, now I actually have the PRD or the spec and I want to execute it, I don't have to go buy Lovable and Replit. I can put Reforge Build right inside my instance, and I can build the prototype right on top and show it at the next meeting with my CEO or CMO. And so I think they're building this spiral here where you learn, you deploy and build, and then you repeat. And to me, it's also fascinating because once you probably deploy a prototype with Reforge Build, you have one, two, three, four prototypes in a certain place. You're going to keep going back to it for prototyping.
Mm.
So I think
What's your
it's a growth loop.
no, I like that take, but I'm also curious, and I'm thinking about it this for marketers or go-to-market people, and
Mhm.
Figma is pushing Figma Make. We have Figma, and I'm like, I haven't yet actually used Figma Make, so that's an interesting sort of thought. We use Framer. Framer just started doing some AI stuff, and like, hey, you can just be inside Framer and like start to talk to Framer to prototype stuff. So there's also like a little bit of a, where do the PMs or the growth people or the marketers live? What is the environment that they live in? And, prototyping is kind of getting baked into each of those. And this is kind of similar to our next story, right? Which is, you think about Hightouch. So let's talk about Hightouch agents. It's a good sort of segue. So Hightouch, and I don't know if they describe themselves as a CDP or an anti-CDP. I know there was a whole
Composable CDP.
composable
But they're
CDP. There we
actually
go.
now a real CDP because they collect
I
events too.
know exactly. But it was good marketing and positioning to get to friends don't let friends buy CDP or whatever. It was fun. And now they just launched Hightouch Agents, which is an AI platform purpose built for marketing teams. The way that they describe it is essentially saying, hey, create everything from a marketing plan to a campaign to ask natural language questions across all of your data, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very powerful pitch. And I know you've probably used Hightouch. So and that's also like another thing of like, if you're a marketer and you're living in Hightouch and you can just ask all of these questions or take it to that next step of executing, why wouldn't you do that, right? So, and there's
Yeah.
a related story we'll talk about, but very curious to hear your take on Hightouch agents.
Yeah. Um, so Hightouch Agents is fascinating because I feel like what so many of the marketing platforms tried to do back in the early 2010s was to build an all-in-one suite.
Yep.
Adobe, Salesforce, you can collect data and market campaigns, and they sold these huge platforms that had analytics and messaging and activation and data all in one. And then we had this great unbundling that's happened over the last, 10 years. We went to a world where there was kind of a centralized stack with a CDP at the center with Segment and mParticle and those guys. But then that all got unraveled with Snowflake and Databricks. You have what's now called the composable stack, which is where you have a data warehouse, and then you have event collection coming into the warehouse. But then on the back end of the warehouse, you compile and transform data and push that all out to your ad networks and to your CRM and to your messaging channels. And this is by far the best and most elegant technical architecture for a marketing team. But it's created a lot of complexity and a lot of confusion because now you have
Mm,
lots of tools spread everywhere. And so what Hightouch has done is they basically put a UI wrapper on top of the Hightouch platform. And it lets you query both the syncs where you can send data out to a destination, as well as when one of those connections is made with a messaging channel, like Braze, for example, or Iterable, or Facebook, or Meta, or Reddit. When those platforms or channels allow you to access data, they will send back the results as long as you've entered your key and all that other stuff. So you can
right.
imagine, previously, if I wanted to check on the stats of a campaign, I would have to either go to my own analytics library
Yep.
or I'd have to go into the tool and ask the question. And so there is a bottleneck now. Like I'm sure data teams are thinking about putting an AI thing on top of Looker, but that requires a lot of customization. And so now I think what they've done is just released a very simple to use tool that lets you query and access information and insights about how your marketing tech stack is working. And I actually think that this was not an intended consequence, but I think this is a consequence. You've now
Mm,
created a little bit of like a Martech superbrain. If you have a warehouse and you have Hightouch as your sole RETL, sending data to all your destinations, it knows everything about those destinations. It knows how they work, what the API spec is, what data you're sending, on what frequency, what's working, what's not working, and now can also pull and bring in campaign data. So I think what's cool is not just the fact that it's a UI on top to query, but it's about where they're going. Today, they can query if these platforms like Braze and Herbal and others have an MCP protocol or just have a
right.
platform API where you can make CRUD requests. You can like create a campaign or edit a campaign. Now you can get information about the campaign, but you could also go and create a campaign.
Yep.
And to me, I described it as like the unitary or uniform marketing platform where,
Yep.
now it's not just an RETL anymore. It's like the ability to query data. It's the ability to create campaigns. And I don't know,
I call it the marketing operating system. And I absolutely agree that this is the future, right? So whether it's Hightouch, whether it's, some other player, wink, wink, you're going to have a future platform which understands everything about your marketing data and then helps you go from just the, querying of the data to the actual execution. And that's inevitable, right? It's going to happen. And kudos to the Hightouch team for the launch. I thought they did a pretty good job of like describing, exactly the types of things that you can do. I want to also show you something
yeah.
that because Google just came out with a launch of, and hopefully the screen is showing here. They launched this thing that is essentially trying to do the thing that you're talking about, but it's like living inside of Google Ads and then living
Yeah.
inside of Google Analytics. So
100%.
same exact thing, right? But instead of like doing it in Hightouch, you're doing it inside of Google Ads. And I think Meta is going to launch the same thing. TikTok's going to launch the same thing. So
But
suddenly what's going to happen? Go ahead. Yeah.
but here's the thing. You have to think, like, this is cool, but for a business that only works in Google Ads, sure, it's great. But nobody just works in Google Ads. They work in other
Yep.
channels. So you
Yep.
have to have that query engine live outside of the third-party channel. And to be honest, this is a problem that I have heard come up now with like 5 different companies in the last month.
Yep.
Companies from Fortune 500s all the way down to small seed startups. They're like, I have multiple channels. I want to be able to query and know what assets I've already created. Because that's the other piece of it is like, hey, we spent all this time and money building assets. And maybe even AI could build the assets for us, but we don't even know what exists. So for
Yep.
a small company, they want to iterate really quickly. For a big company, think about like all the compliance implications. It takes so much time and effort to get an ad unit approved. If
Yep.
you can now go to Hightouch and be like, show me all ad units that we've ran in the last 2 years that include these words for the Super Bowl, and it shows you the campaigns and the assets. And now you can say, great, copy this and create a new campaign and deploy it on Google. Like
100%.
that could
That's going to
save
happen. Yeah.
businesses so much money. And also, it does kind of, I think it will make businesses more efficient is like the key point. It won't get rid of jobs. It will help businesses be more efficient.
Yeah, I think like when you, I hate this term, but when you democratize that data, which truly means, right?
Oh my
When
God.
anybody in the business can just run a natural language search across your entire, database of ads, emails, landing pages, what have you, the amount of sort of, you know, the velocity of ideation, iteration, and execution just gets much higher. And I think that's what you're referring to, right? You're just going to make a shit ton more money. So,
One last thought before we go on. This is
yeah.
just an idea for Hightouch. I think it'd be really cool if in their AI agentic platform, they had a marketplace for vendors so that actually when somebody's dealing with a problem, they could discover solutions to help solve the problem. So
Ah,
imagine
that's
like
cool. Yeah.
every sink or destination has an agent that the vendor gets to put knowledge into. So you could imagine like, hey, I'm running this campaign. I'm actually like really interested in figuring out how to make it better with incrementality. Like
Yep.
it could say, hey, do you want to talk to the Paramark bot? And the
Yep.
Paramark bot can then come into Hightouch to consult with you. And like that is also a possibility of like maybe the sales process will totally change. And again, maybe they're talking to Pranav's Super Me, a version of Pranav's Super Me inside of Hightouch in
Look
lieu
at
of
that.
having a sales conversation.
You just made Casey and what's the Hightouch founder's name? What's
Tejas and Kashish.
Tejas and Kashish. Like everyone's got partnership ideas now. This is awesome. Free advice from Austin. Listen to more of GTMN. Um, so Google did this, same advisor launch. I'm pretty sure that Meta and others will do too. The other
Yeah.
thing that Google announced recently, which was kind of interesting, is they're allowing advertisers to pull in their Meta budgets and I believe their Reddit budgets into Google into Google Analytics, and they're starting to essentially allow you to do forecasting and planning within Google Ads and Google Analytics. So this is wild, right? It's like I don't know what the end game here is, but I have a feeling that Google thinks it can get all of your marketing budget centralized in Google Analytics. It is pervasive, right? If you are,
That's what they want.
that's what they want. That's what they want. Let's be clear, right? And so here's what the news article said, or the blog post said. Users can now create two different kinds of plans. Projection plans allow marketers to forecast performance and see whether campaigns are on track to hit spend, conversion, and revenue targets. And the scenario planning tool enables marketers to model different budget levels to compare how specific adjustments to spend might impact returns. This is exactly what I think marketers are looking for. Did we lose you, Austin?
I'm back.
And you're back. All right, cool.
I don't know. The internet gods. Maybe Google is angry with me and they sent a attack on my computer.
Google heard you laughing about what Google wants and they kicked you out. So for people listening, we just had a little internet drop off here, but Austin's back. Okay, so what I was saying, Austin, is they essentially have these projection or forecasting tools. So here's an interesting one. The scenario planning tool enables marketers to model different budget levels to compare how specific adjustments to spend might impact returns. Now, this is kind of what Paramark does. We do your marketing mix modeling and incrementality testing and forecasting. And so I'm very intrigued by what the adoption of this, forecasting and planning tool is going to look like. But the consolidation of budget into Google Analytics and offering this forecasting tool kind of tells me that Google has its sights on really becoming a way to manage your entire budget. So the same conversation we were having with, what Hightouch can enable, I think the Google Analytics team is going to try and do the same thing. They may not get there, but the time is now. Like there's some interesting, exciting stuff happening in this whole ecosystem.
Totally. And look, for a large portion of Google's customer base who's only using Google Ads and is a smaller business, it's going to make a ton of sense and be really helpful. But for any large business that's running ads on multiple platforms, it's not going to be used. And that's the reality. And I think if you're a marketer on a big enough company with ad spend spread across many different channels, I would be reluctant to rely on Google to manage all my campaign spend and give me insights
100%.
about it, because it's a conflict of interest. Of course, like they're going to tell me like Meta's ads suck. I don't know, like I couldn't trust it.
Meta might not even allow Google Analytics to do it, or Amazon, or whoever else, right?
Sure.
Because everyone has their own sort of, self-interest at heart. Yeah. So it's just interesting what's happening in the ecosystem. Okay, so another piece of news that launched from Amazon, a couple of different things. One is Amazon also now has an ad agent. Oh my God, every platform is going to have like these agents.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. So I didn't even know this, but Amazon literally has a product called Amazon Marketing Cloud, not the Salesforce Marketing Cloud, the Amazon Marketing Cloud. And this is now a generative AI-powered chatbot within this Amazon Marketing Cloud that allows advertisers to, guess what, measure and analyze the performance of their Amazon ads. So the agent can now generate the code needed to query Amazon data to find specific audiences, identify which ads are most effective, or better understand the consumer journey. So it's the exact same thing, man. So like Google has its ads agent, Amazon has its ads agent, Hightouch is going to be the Switzerland and have an ads agent, right? For all of your stuff. Too many ads agents. I
I
think there's going
I
to be some consolidation.
I agree. Although I think if these platforms were smart, what they would be doing is they'd be combining the query engine with the action engine, and they'd be saying, "Hey, a customer is coming to Amazon Ads or Google Ads. They're looking to do analysis, but they're also looking to create. So, can I, in the beginning, load all of the endless and useless Google Docs that help me do stuff? And can I load that into its memory so that when a person says, how do I run this ad or where do I find X? They don't have to go search through an endless stream of help docs to get it done. Actually, the agent could just take them to the right page and maybe even point an arrow at what they're supposed to do. So that to me, I feel like if they're not thinking about this tool as a way to support their customers and being more successful on their platform is a huge miss. And again, the second thing is if they build MCP for others, or if they have APIs to take action in the platform, they should give that actionability to the agent so that when somebody comes and says, hey, I want to understand how the Halloween campaign did, and then I want to go create a Thanksgiving campaign, it can give them analysis and then it can go prep and maybe even write the code to do the thing for them all from within the environment so that they don't even have to leave. Because this is some
Yeah,
of the struggle right now with AI agents is like, I just feel like I'm bouncing around windows everywhere. And then
exactly.
when I want to do something in a third party platform that needs a key, I have to go create a key and go back and then deploy a thing. This has the potential to like kind of eliminate that for growth marketers. And now growth marketers could just live in each of the respective platforms knowing that, oh, I want to go run a meta campaign. Even if I've never ran meta campaigns before, the agent could probably help me deploy pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, the one thing that I tell marketers all the time in this whole equation is for a certain size, I think all of these agents are probably not that interesting and helpful. Like maybe they're helpful to some degree, but like if you're spending 100,000, 200,000, maybe even $1 million a year collectively across all of your different marketing, um, you actually need very simple sort of analysis. You don't need sort of 5 different agents telling you what to do, because the alpha that you're going to get is from your creativity because you're trying to get from 1 to 10, and it's not like just a 10% improvement. And none of that stuff exists in your data because you haven't had any historical stuff. And then on the flip side, if you're spending 100 million, right? So you're on the other end of the spectrum where you have tons of money being thrown into marketing. Then I think each of these agents give you certain types of optimization ideas that might help, but it's not going to come from individual platforms. I think it is going to come from a central system, right? Well, that's a Hightouch or whatever becomes that marketing operating system. So, okay, we're going to end it on an interesting one. So Reddit launched a new interactive ad format. So this is really interesting, and I found it quite interesting because one of well, I don't know, I should say this. Okay, so Paramount, which is a media company, obviously launched this new Reddit ad, and I'll tell you what it is. So it's an interactive ad which allows advertisers to create immersive experiences and invite audience participation within the Reddit feed. So it's not just a display ad or a video ad. You can actually interact with it. It's almost like a mini game inside of Reddit, which
Okay.
is pretty freaking cool if you think about it. And
Yeah.
so the idea here is that there's a film called The Running Man starring Glenn Powell, and it's premiering November 14th, which I guess is tomorrow.
Mhm.
And he's promoting this whole like immersive experience. You have to avoid drones. You have to go for an escape door to see a personalized video. So like they're gamifying the whole thing, and it's all an ad. I thought this was genius from Reddit, and just like there's already a fan culture, and you're like just encouraging that fan culture even more. So pretty interesting, and I think Reddit's on a pretty healthy trajectory. So good to see them innovating on some new concepts here.
Although, as we talked about last week, I think they increased ad revenue like maybe it was 74 or 84%. I can't remember the exact number, but it was somewhere between 70 and
Yes.
80%. But the base that they were starting from was like a magnitude less than everybody else. So lots of room for opportunity and growth. So I mean, it's interesting that, and maybe not surprising that they're the most innovative here because they have more to gain by doing it.
Yep, yep. But I'm thinking, even B2B companies, like you can totally imagine a B2B company creating a quiz or like a, Space Invaders type of,
Mm-hmm.
interactive experience in the marketing subreddits. It's just you're there, you're geeking out about marketing, and you might as well play this like silly game. And it's sponsored by Paramark, right? Like that. I think that's going to be a thing. Like this is to me, it's a massive opportunity because on in the previous episode, we also talked about how big AppLovin has gotten with
Mm-hmm.
games, right? So the two things kind of colliding here. All right, that was a quick episode today, Austin.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to carve out? Anything else we want to talk about before we wrap up?
The only thing that we said we'd talk about, but we didn't, was Reforge's ad, and I really
Oh yeah,
liked it.
let's do that.
Did you watch it?
I watched it. For some reason, I got Claude vibes from it a little
Oh,
bit.
Claude vibes. Okay.
And so did you see the Claude ads about like the thinking cap on? Like the ethos felt very similar, which was like, hey, we're here to build, which was good, right? So I liked it. But there was like, I felt that there was a lot of sort of similarity between Anthropic's sort of videos and Reforge's videos. But I like the execution a lot.
Yeah. I honestly, the thing that I fixated on was just like it felt younger and snappier than a lot of the ads that I've seen out of B2B businesses. There was that phase maybe 5 or 6 years ago where there was one production agency making everybody's ads and they were all the same and it was like kind of quippy. You know what I'm talking about? I forgot the name of the company that was doing them. And I just like have come to expect that every B2B ad is like kind of the same generic, I don't know, bullshit. And I didn't get that vibe. Like I thought it was really well done. I thought it was, mostly because like it didn't focus on the product really. It was just like, hey, we're trying to
Yes.
change something, and it was speaking at a higher kind of altitude about what was happening. And yeah, maybe I'm just like oversensitive to the fact that I see so many B2B ads now that are like, we're a platform to do X, Y, and Z. And, they have an animation or they're trying to like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It just wasn't
No,
boring.
no, you're 100% right. B2B definitely suffers from this. There's a couple of interesting ads from B2B that I particularly like. And I don't even know if this is an ad. So, go to YouTube and type Nope, Nope. This is from a mind mapping tool. I think it was Lucid, if I'm not wrong.
Mm.
And it has some 5 million views on it. And what is it? It starts with a view of a spider, and the words Nope. And the whole video, 5 minutes, is going through a mind map of all the different types of spiders.
Oh
And
my
that's the
God.
whole
I don't
ad.
know if I want to watch that.
And then you zoom out, and it's like the mind mapping software. And I just thought it was hilarious. It's like done in this like really quirky way, where this guy's just talking about, okay, and that's this spider, and that's that spider, and like, oh,
Oh my
this is
God.
the chain of that spider. It's hilarious. And then on that note, there was another one just this week on my feed from the company Air. Have you heard of Air?
Mm-hmm.
They're like I think the enterprise way of describing them would be a digital asset management platform. But, essentially you store all your creative content in Air. And they had an AI generated ad. It was like this little kid. He's doing all this. It was pretty funny. But that genre is getting pretty dated fairly quickly because everyone's creating them. But it was fun.
Man, we don't talk about dams enough. Like that's like the that's like the seedy underbelly of Martech because it's basically like a database for like assets.
Yep. Yep.
But they're actually like really important parts of big enterprise systems because you can imagine if you're just like a company that runs even 10 to 100 ads a year, like your dam is just in the actual creative tools themselves. But when you go to an enterprise that has 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 business units, and all of those people are running ads and getting it approved, now you need a centralized depository where you can put the assets and access them and query them. And I actually think like some of these old school technologies, like people don't even think of, are the ripest for innovation with AI. Like I'm sure Air is thinking of this, but some of my experience with dams has been like a little lackluster. You're like, okay, this is an
Oh,
old
for
tool.
sure.
but
For sure.
a giant database of digital assets that AI can work through and also has generative abilities on top. I don't know if dams like that exist right now.
I think Air would say they are the ones, right?
Yeah,
So
probably.
they're basically saying and the head of marketing at Air is going to hate the category we just put them in, because they probably don't describe themselves as a digital asset management tool. But that's exactly what it is. That and I spent 3 years at Dropbox. I can tell you that a lot of the enterprise usage was using Dropbox as a DAM.
As a dam, yeah.
For video editors, for film producers, for the creative people. And so Air takes a shot at Dropbox, at Google Drive, and at Adobe in their ads and in their messaging quite a bit for that reason.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. There's just like, in the world of composability, and as more companies move to being enterprise engineering first, there's this question in my mind of like, how much of this do you have to buy versus build?
Yeah.
Because what is a dam really? It's like a warehouse with a query ability on top. And like, how sophisticated do you need that to be? When I think about Hightouch, for example, it's like, could you set up APIs to just pipe all assets as image files into a DB, and then you can query
You're
it with
not wrong.
Hightouch?
You're not wrong, because a lot of the capabilities in those older dams was all of the tagging and sorting and the metadata associated
Yeah,
with it. So
you
you
don't
could
need that
actually do
anymore.
the searching. But that, you can think about the nature of that metadata. Where has that asset been used? Who created it? When was it created? What the performance of that was, right? That all of that stuff. You're right that in an AI world, the whole category is probably going to get redefined. All right, we didn't want to talk about dams today. That was not on the docket, but
Dams.
here we are. Dams. All right, Austin, this was fantastic. We are going to do this again next week. So episode 5 in. We still haven't gotten GTMN.fm up. That's on me. We will get it
It's on
up.
me too. I'm
And
supposed to be your helper, but I'm not being very helpful lately.
we got our real lives other than this podcast too, right? So
I'm not even
we'll get
employed.
there.
I'm not even employed. I don't have any excuses.
That's even more impressive, because you're probably working with like 5 different customers, adding a ton of value and jumping between Slack and Teams. And today, okay, fun little side story. We are now going to install Lark on our machines. Do you know what Lark is?
No.
Lark is
Do I want to know?
ByteDance's. Yeah. You do want to know. ByteDance's version of Slack. And
Oh.
the reason is, we're talking to TikTok for, sort of working with them as a partner or what have you. And TikTok, because it's that's the owner company, they only work with Lark. So this is a fun of like working with large enterprises. We now have Slack, we have ClickUp, we have Teams, and now we're going to have Lark. We have 4 different messaging platforms for collaborating with customers and partners in a cross-functional environment. It is hilarious. And on that note, we are going to bring this to a close. So I will see you next week.
See you next week. Thanks, Pranav.